There is a specific nightmare scenario that keeps space engineers awake at night. It isn't the explosion of a rocket on the pad or a failure of life support during the transit. It is the moment the ships simply stop coming. To build a city on Mars by the year 2050 is to accept a brutal reality. Earth is not just far away, it is effectively inaccessible. If a crisis strikes our homeworld, a global war, a pandemic, or an economic collapse, and the supply line is severed, a Martian colony isn't just an outpost, it becomes a tomb. This is the fundamental difference between a moon base and a Mars city. A moon base is a campsite. It is 3 days away. If something breaks, you can limp home. Supplies are always within easy reach. But Mars is a different story. We are looking at an 8-month transit across the void, even with future nuclear propulsion technology that could cut that trip down to 45 days. The planets only align for a launch window once every 26 months. That means the people of Mars cannot be dependent on the resources of Earth. To survive, they have to learn to harvest everything the red planet has to offer, which frankly isn't much. The goal of SpaceX and the engineers looking toward 2050 is to build a civilization that can survive the Great Disconnect, a city of 1 million people that can stand on its own feet when support from the homeworld ends. This is the story of how we build that independence, from the first robot to the first harvest. The colonization of Mars does not begin with a human footprint. It begins with a silicon one. Long before a human crew risks the journey, the planet will be inhabited by dozens, perhaps hundreds of autonomous machines. The environment is simply too hostile to send humans into the unknown without infrastructure waiting for them. The surface is colder than Antarctica, drier than the Sahara, and bombarded by radiation that would shred human DNA. This is why the first wave, targeting a launch as early as 2026, will be comprised of starships loaded with Optimus bots. It is no coincidence that the same company building the rockets is developing a humanoid workforce. Optimus is designed to be the expendable laborer of the new world. SpaceX knows that the learning curve for landing on Mars will be steep. The first few ships might crash. They might tip over in the soft regolith. They might explode. That is why they will send a fleet, 5 landers at once, hoping that at least one touches down safely to release its cargo. These robots have a boring but critical existence. They won't be conducting science experiments. They will be construction workers. Their battery life and autonomy will determine whether the first humans arrive at a sanctuary or a graveyard. They have 2 years, 1 orbital cycle, to prepare the ground before the biological cargo arrives. But where do you build a city on a dead planet? You follow the water. SpaceX has identified the Arcadia Planitia region as the prime candidate for humanity's second home. It sits just northeast of Olympus Mons, the largest volcano in the solar system. But we aren't going there for the view. We are going there because it is a flat plain located at a mid-latitude where massive deposits of water ice are believed to be hiding just beneath the surface. Water is the single most important resource on Mars. Bringing enough water from Earth to keep a city alive is physically impossible. Water is heavy, and mass is the enemy of rocketry. We have to dig it up. The robots will deploy modified mining rigs, technology adapted from tunnel boring machines on Earth, to chew through the red dirt and reach the ice sheets. Once that ice is extracted, it goes into a critical piece of infrastructure, the water treatment plant. This plant has 2 jobs. First, recycling. On the 8-month journey and in the early colony, every drop of moisture counts. You can only turn yesterday's coffee into tomorrow's water so many times before you need fresh input. But the second job of the water plant is even more vital. It is an oxygen factory. By running electricity through the water, we can split the molecules. We harvest the oxygen for the colonists to breathe, and we capture the hydrogen for something equally important: the ability to leave. Nobody signs up for a Mars mission expecting an easy ride home, but in the early days, people will want to return. However, just like water, you cannot carry enough fuel on a starship to fly to Mars, land, and then take off again. The tank would be empty the moment you touch down. This means the return ticket must be manufactured on Mars. This is why the Starship engines run on methalox, a mixture of methane and oxygen. Methane is a hydrocarbon. We already have the hydrogen from the water ice. The carbon comes from the air. Mars has a thin, toxic atmosphere made almost entirely of carbon dioxide. A massive infrastructure project We'll see the robots constructing carbon capture devices to suck in the thin Martian air, strip out the carbon atoms, and bond them with the hydrogen. This is the Sabatier process. It turns the atmosphere and the ice into rocket fuel. It is a massive industrial undertaking that must be running autonomously before humans ever leave Earth. If the fuel plant isn't working, the colony is a prison. None of this industry works without massive amounts of energy. Mining rigs, water splitters, fuel synthesizers, and life support systems need to run 24/7. When the first human fleet arrives, potentially a massive wave of 20 to 100 starships in the 2030s, the energy demand will skyrocket. The problem is that Mars has a day-night cycle almost identical to Earth's. For 12 hours a day, solar panels are useless. To survive the freezing Martian night, where temperatures drop low enough to shatter untreated metal, the colony needs a battery backup of colossal proportions. We will see the deployment of industrial energy storage, similar to the megapack systems used on Earth. These can be transported in the cargo holds of the starships, but the reliance on solar power is a calculated risk. A global dust storm on Mars can last for weeks, blocking out the sun and choking off the power supply. Eventually, the city will need nuclear power, but in the fragile beginning, survival will depend on how many batteries we can ship and how efficient our solar arrays are at catching the weak Martian sunlight. Once the humans arrive, the clock starts ticking on their physical survival. The starships themselves can serve as temporary barracks, but they are tall, narrow, and require elevators to access the surface. They are not long-term homes. We have all seen the concept art of giant glass domes covering a futuristic city. In reality, building a glass dome on Mars in the early years is an engineering nightmare. It's heavy, it's fragile, and if it cracks, everyone dies. Instead, we will likely look to the wisdom of the Inuit. We will build igloos. NASA and other researchers are developing the ice home concept. Water is an incredible material. It is translucent, allowing natural light to filter through, which is crucial for the psychological stability of humans living millions of miles from home. But more importantly, water is one of the best radiation shields in the universe. The plan involves robots deploying inflatable, donut-shaped membranes. These are lightweight and easy to ship. Once inflated, the robots pump the hollow shells full of Martian water, which freezes into a solid protective barrier. It shields the colonists from the cancer-causing cosmic rays while providing a structure that uses local resources. As the city expands beyond simple habitats into research labs, factories, and roads, we will need something stronger than ice. We need concrete, but we can't use earth concrete. We need astrocrete. To make concrete, you need a binder, a glue to hold the aggregate together. We have plenty of red dust for aggregate, but no glue. However, the colonists themselves will bring the solution. Scientists at the University of Manchester have proven that a protein found in human blood can act as a powerful binding agent. While blood concrete sounds like something out of a horror movie, there is a less gruesome alternative. Urea. Yes, the chemical found in human urine. In a closed-loop system, nothing is waste. By mixing urea from the colony's wastewater with Martian regolith, we can create a building material that is stronger than standard concrete on Earth. It brings a literal meaning to putting yourself into your work. The city will be built from the planet, bound together by the biological byproducts of the people living there. We have shelter, we have air, we have fuel. Now we face the final and perhaps most difficult hurdle: food. You cannot ship enough freeze-dried meals to feed a million people forever. A self-sustaining city must farm, but Mars fights us here too. The soil is not just dead, it is toxic. The Martian surface is laced with perchlorates, salts containing chlorine. It's essentially the same chemical we use in bleach and rocket fuel. If you planted a potato in raw Martian dirt, it wouldn't grow. If you managed to force it to grow, eating it would poison you by destroying your thyroid. So before we can farm, we have to create a massive chemical processing industry just for dirt. The soil must be washed to remove the perchlorates, then enriched with nutrients and bacteria brought from Earth to make it alive. This leads us to vertical farming. Towering racks of hydroponic greens under purple LED lights, fed by water recovered from the colony's life support and fertilized by, well, us again. Just as urine builds builds the walls, solid waste will feed the fields. It is a brutal, efficient ecosystem where every molecule is recycled. If all of this works, the robotics, the ice mining, the fuel synthesis, the urine-based architecture, and the toxic farming, we reach the vision of 2050. By this time, the goal is to have a population that has reached critical mass. This is the point where the specialized labor pool is large enough to fix any problem without calling Houston. If a microchip fabricator breaks, there are people on Mars who know how to build a new one. If a surgeon is needed, the medical wing is fully staffed. The ultimate goal of this city is not exploration, it is insurance. It is about planting deep roots, both figuratively and literally, in the red soil. The vision is that one day we look up at the night sky from the surface of Mars, point a telescope at the pale blue dot of Earth, and know that even if that light goes out, humanity will continue. We will have cemented our future as a multiplanetary species, not by conquering Mars, but by learning to survive it. The roadmap is drawn and the rockets are being built, but the timeline relies on everything going right in an environment where everything usually goes wrong. This will be the most dangerous construction project in human history. It will require a generation of volunteers willing to trade the blue skies of Earth for a life of hard labor in a red desert. If you want to keep tracking the progress of Starship and the technologies that will take us to the new world, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And I want to know your take. When the first colonial fleet opens its doors, would you take a one-way ticket to build the future, or are you staying here on Earth? Thanks for watching.